lectures this evening. And before I get started, I just want to take a moment to thank all of my supporters and everyone for supporting my channel. So with that being said, let's get on down to today's lecture, which is a must-read or listen to book. My book title, Awake Financial Freedom. You know, my book hit all major bookstores well over 3 years ago. And from time to time, I like giving insight in regards to my book title, Awake Financial Freedom. My book got accepted by 2 world-renowned publishing companies. Page Publishing Company did the print version, the Kindle, and Audiobook Network did my audio version of my book title, Awake Financial Freedom. And so I'm telling you, I tell anybody that I still use my own book as a resource to sustain my financial freedom. And I'm telling you, sometimes I listen to the audio version or sometimes I reread my own book as a reminder of the financial destruction I was in from 2007 to 2012. You know, I tell anybody, you can tell when an author has gone through a publishing company, because when you turn the book over, you'll see the logo of that publishing company across from the barcode. And on the reverse side of this, I give, of course, the reader a synopsis of a snapshot, powerful book. And I started out with, hello readers, my name is Marie Holiday. I became spiritually awake in 2012 after living in five years of financial destruction. As a result, I want to share my experience. The overall concept of the book is for the reader to gain insight into our roles from financial destruction to gaining financial freedom in all areas of my life. And I still maintain my financial freedom, you know, such as restoring my credit score to 800. At the time I wrote this book, my credit score was at 800, is now at 850. Also investing aggressively into multiple 401ks, retirement accounts, diversifying my financial portfolio, increasing the value of my home without going into debt. I since then have paid off my mortgage. I paid off a 30-year mortgage 20 years early, people. Mastering the skills of saving and keeping money in my emergency savings account and staying away from credit cards. I have no doubt the reader will gain valuable information from this inspiring, thought-provoking, and motivational book. This book has a spiritual base. It really does. And it's been well over 4 years, actually, since this book hit all major bookstores. It also got the audio version. I dedicated this book to my daughter, Anita Marie Holiday. She's in the Navy, been in for about 10 years. And on this first part with this dedication, I wrote, to my daughter, Anita Marie Holiday, who witnessed firsthand my ascension from financial destruction to financial freedom in all areas of my life. She was in high school at the time, such as restoring my credit score to 800, is now 850, investing aggressively into multiple 401 retirement accounts, diversifying my portfolio, and increasing the value of my home without going into debt. I paid off that home 20 years early. Right now, I'm living on my land in the country, debt-free in totality. All the bills I have in the rural. It's been this way for several years. It's less than $500 a month. I learned how to master the skills of setting up an emergency savings account by treating my savings account like a bill. When I had a spiritual battle in 2012, I can remember that spiritual battle for 24 hours in 2012. You know, drowning in a sea of debt. I had this spiritual battle in 2012. And when I came out of that spiritual battle in 2012, God gave me the skills to master my money, to control my money, to write this manuscript, guided my words, and the rest is history. Um, And I talk about that spiritual battle in one of these chapters. Um, and I also said I learned how to master the skills of setting up an emergency savings account by treating my savings account like a bill. Most importantly, I developed financial skills to pay off my 30-year mortgage 20 years early. In short, in 10 years, I will be able to truly enjoy a debt-free lifestyle starting in September of 2024. But when I wrote my manuscript, at the time, I put in my manuscript and wrote in my book that I was going to project it to retire September of 2024, but actually I end up retiring September of 2023. So I beat that deadline, and I was able to exit up out of this workforce at an early age, and with multiple retirement accounts hitting me for the rest of my life. When I retired in September of 2023, I relocated to Florida for a hot minute. I was there for about a year, got the heck out of there, and set up my tiny home on my property in the middle of nowhere. And that's just all around better move. This is a powerful testimony. I tell anybody, because like I said, from 2007 to 2012, I can clearly remember this. I was living in financial destruction, 5 years of financial destruction. I didn't have 1 cent to my name, even though I was getting up and going to work every day, working a couple of jobs, had a daughter in high school. I had no money, people. No one in this world could have ever told me September of 2023, I would have been exiting up out of this workforce forever, with multiple retirement checks hit me for the rest of my life. No debt, no rent, no mortgage, no credit card bills, no car note bills, no school loan bills, no personal loan bills, no medical bills. I was laser focused. When I came up out of that spiritual battle, God gave me the skills to transform my life financially. Real talk, people. I can clearly remember when I was in financial destruction. I remember at one point, my car note at the time, I had a Honda. My car note at one point was, I think, 5 or 6 months in the rears. I don't know why they didn't repossess that car. I think because I was calling Honda every month. I can't pay. Another month go by, can't pay, 6 months in the rears. I can clearly remember that. I can clearly remember borrowing from Peter to pay Paul. I can clearly remember overdraft on all my bank accounts, all of them. Money gone before I could even get paid. I can clearly remember pawning my class ring to make money to pay bills. I can clearly remember that. But when I got tired of living like that and took it over to God, I'm telling you, I can remember 24 hours, I was in a deep sleep, struggling, trying to bargain with God, tired of living from paycheck to paycheck. When I got up out of that 24 battle, the rest is history, people. And I did not learn these skills in graduate school. Only thing graduate school, I got 2 master's degrees. Only thing graduate school taught Marie Holiday was how to get in debt, school loan debt, credit card debt. I didn't learn these skills that I talked about in this book, this powerful testimony. I learned this by going through financial destruction, people. And I'm telling you, this is real. This is the core concept. This money piece, I always love revisiting this topic. This money piece, finances, how to rise above your financial situation. That's the core concept of my company, Parents and Social Resource Center. That's the core concept of my book, that money piece. That's the core concept of my YouTube channel. I'm always going to revisit topics about this. I'm telling you, I can remember when my manuscript got accepted by my book went through 2 major publishing companies. Page Publishing Company did the Kindle, the paperback version. Audio Network did my audio version. And it took the experts to transform my manuscript. I spent over a year writing my manuscript. I can remember that. Drowning in a sea of debt. God just say, start writing it down. And I did. I didn't know anything about writing a book. I'm a first-time author. And I wrote my manuscript. I didn't have no typewriter. I wrote the manuscript to my book with a piece of paper and a pencil. And I wrote and I wrote and I wrote. And by the time I got done, I then transposed my handwritten manuscript into Word document and prayed about it and submitted to a world-renowned publishing company in New York. New York is big on those world-renowned publishing companies. And I didn't know and understand people, rural, just because you submit a manuscript to a publishing company, that don't mean they're going to accept your manuscript. Two things will occur. That publishing company is going to either accept your manuscript or they're going to reject your manuscript. And when I submitted my manuscript to Page Publishing Company, 2 or 3 weeks went by, I ain't heard nothing. I was on pins and needles, knowing rather not they was going to accept my manuscript. And I can remember when I was at a gas station, I got a phone call from the publishing company. And the publishing company told me, they say, Ms. Holiday, before we can accept your manuscript, we need for you to go in and make one change. I went in and made that one change, and the rest is history. You know, the power of going through a publishing company, you know, I don't have to worry about sales of my book. They track the sales of my book. I don't have to worry about stocking the paperback version of my book. I don't have to worry about none of that. You know, Page Publishing Company and Audiobook Network, hands still on my book, people. Only thing I worried about is they send me my royalty checks every quarter for the sales of my book. And when your book is backed by a publishing company, that gives you credibility as an author. Real talk. And I'm telling you, I still use I get chills sometimes when I'm going through my book or either listening to it. You know, when the Audiobook Network did my audio version of my book, they spent 6 months transforming my already published work. The book was already published, but I had to go through a second publishing company because Page Publishing Company don't do audio version. So my published work had to go through another publishing company to transform my published work into an audio version. And so the experts spent 6 months transforming my published work into an audio version. Page Publishing Company spent transforming my manuscript into a finished work. So you're talking about the experts who do what they do. I don't know anything about editing and page design and ISBN and all of that. But I tell folks, when your book is backed by a world-renowned publishing company, they have the power to pierce the veil and make your book accessible worldwide. Ain't got to worry about it. I can go to any bookstore in the world and get my book. Or if you want to get it on Amazon, or if you want to get it on Apple iTunes, or all of those other platforms in this world, I can get my book. And I don't know nothing about all of that. So that's why I tell folks, if you're going to get a book published, let the experts do what they do. I don't have to worry about restocking my books. None of that. If the person want to get it from Amazon, you know, I don't have to worry about none. The publishing company do all that. And they track your sales by the barcode. So I tell folks, let the experts do what they do when it comes to publishing your book. And so all you got to worry about is your royalty checks that the royalty company will send you on the sales of your book every quarter. And all I do is reinvest that money. So I'm telling you, I still use my book as a powerful resource to sustain my financial freedom. Because I'm gonna tell you something. I didn't have one penny in my name. Ain't nobody in the world could have told me I would be even having this conversation right now. I ain't learned none of this in graduate school. And, you know, the first chapter, I talk about my rock bottom. Chapter 2, I talk about my turning point. Chapter 3, I talk about my second order of business. Chapter 4, oh, I can remember this. In chapter 4, I'm talking about my credit score. And at that time, when I was in financial destruction, I talk about my credit score had hit an all-time low of 340. It's 850 now. That's worse than worse. Because when you're talking about financial destruction, that's everything. Your credit score, your credit, your money gone, everything. You're losing sleep. You can't sleep because all the bills hitting you from left and right. You're borrowing from Peter to pay Paul. I'm overdrafting all of my bank accounts, all of them. So in chapter 4, I talk about my 340 credit score. And then in chapter 5, I talk about some things I did strategically to raise my credit score from a 340 to 800 in less than 12 months. So I talk about that in chapter 5, which was power, because it's some powerful strategic things I did. I ain't pay nobody. No, it was some strategic things back then that I did to raise my credit score from a 340 to a 800 in less than 12 months. That's power, people. And some of the things I did, I would never have thought of unless I had went into prayer and got those skills from God. Then in chapter 6, I talk about credit card free. Back then I was, overdrafting in default on all my credit cards, but I hadn't owned a credit card since 2012. And then the closure, and then at the very end, my resources. At the very end of this book, I got some resources in here. Closure about the author, a little bit more information about the author. Also, what resources do I have? There's an area in here where I have resources in my book. I have my I got my actual phone number in here. If a person want to reach out to me and ask questions in relation to many of the tips and strategies I did to raise my credit score from a 340 to 800. I have my email in here. I have my Robinhood referral program, my Facebook information, YouTube, and my Instagram. It's all in here on the resources. And I also brought it to closure by saying Marie Holiday created my YouTube channel in June of 2020 in order to share my experience of how I rose from financial destruction to my financial freedom. That's the core concept of my YouTube. I may do other lectures and live screens and video shorts, but the foundation, the core concept of my YouTube channel is that money, peace, how to rise above your financial situation. The core concept of my YouTube channel is in line also with my book. The core concept of my book is in line with my company, Parents and Associates Resource Center. It all ties in by design. There was no accident, people. So way back in 2020, I'm linking, because my company, even though I'm retired, I still make money under my company utilizing my professional credentials as a licensed clinical addiction expert. So my company, 25 plus 26 years strong. So everything by design with my company, my book ties in to my YouTube channel, but my company been around long before YouTube. So I talk about in this, bringing it to closure, under the resources at the tail end of this book, I talk about that YouTube channel. My YouTube channel was in the infancy during those stages, but the overall concept of my YouTube channel is for the viewer to gain valuable tips about money, financing, budgeting, investments, and rising above your financial situation. The viewer will learn strategic ways to get out of debt and to remain debt-free. I had to be strategic. I'm military. So I had to put my strategic plan on paper in regards to how to rise above my financial situation. Strategy-wise, I had to do all of that. Because one of the strategies I used back then, and I talk about this in my book, is how I was able to pay that 30-year mortgage off 20 years early. And I was strategic with that. And one of the things I did, I could clearly remember, I paid my regular mortgage at the end of the month, but I will also pay money on the principal of my mortgage every week, slamming all that additional money on the principal of my mortgage. And then when the end of the month came, I would pay the regular mortgage. Every time I got a raise, I would slam a lump sum of money on the principal of the mortgage. And I was working a part-time job, so all that extra money I earned from a part-time job, I was slamming it on the principal of my mortgage. So I was aggressively, and when you do that, you got to indicate that where you want, how my mortgage worked. all that extra money I was sending in, you got to indicate that you want that extra money to go specifically towards the principal. Because if you don't, then it'll go, some of it will go on the interest. So I was doing that so aggressively. And one day I went to my mailbox. The deed to my home was in the mailbox 20 years early. And I talk about this in my book. The viewer will learn strategic ways to get out of debt and remain debt free. I have no doubt the viewer will gain valuable information by listening to each new weekly upload. I also discuss other thought-provoking, informative, motivational topics. So at the time I wrote this, I put, so support and subscribe to my awesome YouTube channel. So again, like I said, the core concept of my YouTube channel is that money, peace, how to rise above your financial situation. Yeah, I may talk about other topics, but I'm going to always revisit the core concept of my YouTube channel that is in line with my book, that's in line with the mission, goals, and objective of my company, Paris and Associates Resource Center. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm here to tell you that I will be forever grateful for God for giving me the skills to be in the position to have retired early, to share my knowledge and experience onto the world, because I have no doubt, even folks who may be listening to this right now, I have no doubt as we speak, there are people who are drowning in a sea of debt. There are people who are scared to go to their mailbox because they're behind on bills, default on bills, default on credit cards, default on school loan, no word about how they're going to pay their rent or their mortgage or their car note or the school loan, drowning in a sea of debt. And I was one of those people. From 2007 to 2012, I was one of those people. And nobody in this world could have told me I'll be in the position right now and been this way since 2012, continue to be debt free. I continue to diversify my portfolio in retirement. I'm in a position where I reinvest 100% of my retirement income. In September of this year, made 3 solid years I've been retired. I ain't touched none of that money. I don't know too many people in this world who get retirement income every month, don't need the money, ain't touching the money, and reinvesting 100% of my retirement income into another retirement account, all by the grace and glory of God. Real talk. Like I said, I learned none of this in school. I got 2 master's degrees. I learned none of this with what I wrote about in school. No, like I said, it took me going through severe financial destruction in faith in God to be able to have this conversation right now. Sometimes I read this book and it gives me chills, because it's almost like I can't even believe this was me living in this type of financial destruction for 5 years. It's almost like 2 different people. And this is real. This is real. This is real talk. These are the type of discussions I'm gonna bring to these platforms, thought-provoking discussions, and I'm gonna keep it real. I'm gonna keep this thing real. You know, you got family members drowning in debt. You may be one of the ones drowning in debt. Real talk. I tell anybody, you owe it to yourself to read this book, because I still use this as a powerful resource, especially when I'm looking at this chapter in terms of how I rose that credit score from a 340 to an 800. That's power. You know how many people would love to have an 800, 850 credit score? I can clearly remember when my credit score was 340. I don't even know if you can get it any lower than that. It was low. It was horrible. Real talk. But like I said, when I got out of that spiritual battle with God in 2012, the transformation of Marie Holiday occurred. So again, I just want to thank everyone for listening in. Share this information. Like I said, from time to time, I love to revisit this powerful topic, especially the earlier part of the year. You know, God gave me the skills. I will be forever grateful to the Almighty God. God gave me the skills to awake my financial freedom, and the rest is history. That's all I have. Simplify, simple fidelis, and I'm going to leave you in the care of your own conscience. I want to thank everyone for listening in. I see a lot of folks are listening in on this lecture. You know, one of my styles is I'm going to acknowledge everyone who's listening in on this lecture, but I do not go back and forth responding to these comments in the live stream. But I do want to acknowledge and thank everyone. I want to thank God for giving me the knowledge and the skills and the passion to bring onto these platforms with all of this important information. And I want to thank God for giving me the skills to push my YouTube channel into a whole nother stratosphere. I think I don't even keep counting anymore. I think I got well over 423,000 subscribers. I can clearly remember, rural. I can clearly remember when I only had 2 subscribers, me and my daughter. I can clearly remember that first year of being a content creator. It took me, after that first year, I only had 100 subscribers after 1 year. And I was trying to get monetized. My channel's been monetized down for over 3 years. But I can remember, I said, my God, a whole year and all I got is 100 subscribers. And the criteria to get monetized, you had to have 1,000 subscribers and 4,000 watch hours within a 365-day time frame. And I'm looking at this criteria back then. I said, in the rural, I'm gonna get this channel monetized. I only got so when I went into the second year of my YouTube channel, I had to shift my mindset and shift my strategy. And it took me 2.5 years to monetize. But without me shifting my mindset into that second year, I would have never made it in terms of getting monetized. Many other accolades my channel has earned: YouTube Silver Play Button Award, and I think you have to have 100. You have to hit that first 100,000 subscribers, and some other criterias to get that YouTube Silver Play Button Award. And then a little over a year now, my channel met criteria for major brand deals. And I tell anybody, that's when you begin to pierce the veil as a content creator, monetized channel, in terms of your monthly checks from YouTube. You begin to see a rise in it when you tap into those brand deals. Yeah, you make money off ad revenue and membership and all of that, but you really see more significant income as a content creator when you pierce into the veil and companies seek you out to go into a contractual agreement and they pay that content creator money to run their product, services, and brand across your channel. So, but it took a lot of hard work behind the scene to even get to that point. But I tell anybody, you cannot just be money driven. You got to have a true mission, goals, and objective, and reason and purpose behind your channel as a content creator in terms of the information that you want to deliver. Real talk. So again, that's all I have. Simple Fast, Simple Fidelis, and I want to leave you in the care of your own conscience. Have a great day.